Right now, someone in Perth has $200 in their savings account and a car that just failed its Rego inspection. And right now, someone in Sydney has $40,000 sitting in a high-interest account doing absolutely nothing, terrified to touch it. Both of these people think they understand emergency funds. Neither of them actually does. And today I'm going to show you exactly how much you need sitting in cash, why the old advice you've heard is wrong for most Australians, and how to build this fund without wrecking your ability to invest. Let's start with the advice you've probably already heard. 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's the line every finance article in the world repeats, and it's not wrong, but it's lazy. It treats a 24-year-old renter with no dependents the same as a 45-year-old with a mortgage, 2 kids, and a single income. Those two people do not need the same buffer. And treating them the same is how people either oversave and miss out on decades of compounding, or undersave and end up on a credit card the moment something breaks. So let's actually break this down properly. If you're single, renting, in a stable job, and you could realistically find another job within a few weeks if you had to, 3 months of expenses is genuinely enough. For most Australians, that's somewhere between $9,000 and $50,000.
Here's where the cold comes in. Your pancreas detects that spike and releases a surge of insulin, the hormone responsible for shuttling glucose out of your blood and into your cells. That part most people already know. What most people don't know is that insulin doesn't just manage sugar. It also acts directly on the walls of your blood vessels, and depending on how much insulin gets released and how your body responds, it can cause those vessels to do 2 very different things. In a healthy, calibrated response, insulin actually widens blood vessels slightly, improving blood flow, but after a large, fast sugar spike, the kind you get from a sugary snack, on an empty stomach, the body can overcorrect. And that overcorrection often shows up as vasoconstriction. Your blood vessels, particularly the small ones near the surface of your skin, in your fingers, your toes, your ears, begin to narrow. And that narrowing is the whole story. Your body is essentially rerouting blood flow, pulling it away from your extremities and prioritizing your core, your organs, the parts of you that matter most for survival. It's the same basic instinct your body uses in the cold, except this time it's not triggered by the temperature outside. It's triggered by chemistry happening inside you. Less blood reaching your hands and feet means less heat reaching your hands and feet. And heat is what those areas depend on entirely, because unlike your core, your fingers and toes don't generate much warmth on their own. They rely almost completely on blood flow to stay warm. Cut that flow down, even slightly, and the temperature drop is immediate and noticeable. This is where the crash comes in, and it's the part almost nobody connects to the cold feeling. That spike of insulin doesn't just narrow your blood vessels. It also works so efficiently at clearing sugar from your blood that it frequently overshoots. Your blood sugar rises fast, insulin floods in to bring it back down, and often it brings it down past the baseline into a mild dip. Doctors call this reactive hypoglycemia. And it typically hits somewhere between 30 minutes and 2 hours after a sugar-heavy meal. And your body treats a blood sugar dip as a genuine threat, not a minor inconvenience. Low blood sugar means your brain, which runs almost entirely on glucose, is at risk of losing its primary fuel source. So your body activates a stress response. It releases adrenaline and cortisol, the same hormones involved in a fight or flight reaction. And adrenaline does something very specific to your circulation. It constricts blood vessels even further, on top of what the insulin has already done. This is the body's emergency logic. When resources are scarce, or when the system senses a threat, it pulls blood toward vital organs and away from the periphery. It's the exact same mechanism that makes your hands go cold when you're frightened or under sudden stress. Sugar crashes trigger a milder, slower version of that same stress signal, which means the cold hands you feel after a candy bar and the cold hands you feel during a moment of panic are, physiologically, closer to the same event than you'd expect. Now, this doesn't happen identically to everyone, and that matters. People with insulin resistance, a condition where cells respond less efficiently to insulin, tend to release even larger amounts of it to compensate. More insulin circulating means a stronger vasoconstriction response, and often a sharper crash afterward. This is part of why people in the early stages of type 2 diabetes, or those with prediabetes, frequently report feeling unusually cold, particularly in their hands and feet hours after eating. It isn't a separate symptom happening by coincidence, it's a direct downstream effect of the same glucose and insulin swings, just amplified. And it's one of the reasons doctors sometimes ask about temperature sensitivity in patients being screened for blood sugar issues, because the circulatory story and the metabolic story are the same story. There's also a second, quieter mechanism working in parallel, and it's one most explanations skip entirely. Digestion itself is expensive. Breaking down and processing a large intake of sugar and food requires blood flow, specifically toward your digestive organs. Your body temporarily reallocates circulation toward your gut to support that process, which means, again, less blood available for your extremities. This effect exists after any large meal, not just sugary ones, which is part of why people sometimes feel a little cold or sluggish after any big lunch. But sugar accelerates and intensifies the effect because of how quickly it forces the insulin response, stacking a digestive blood shift on top of a hormonal one. So by the time you're sitting there, 30 or 60 minutes after dessert, wondering why your hands feel like you just walked in from outside, there are actually 3 separate mechanisms working together. Insulin-driven vasoconstriction pulling blood away from your skin. A glucose dip, triggering an adrenaline response that constricts vessels even further. And digestion itself temporarily prioritizing blood flow toward your gut over your extremities. None of these are dangerous on their own for a healthy person. This is a normal, self-correcting process. Your blood sugar stabilizes, your vessels widen back out, and within an hour or two, you're back to your baseline temperature without ever realizing anything happened.